Hey guys, welcome back to Emmalition. I'm Emma, this is Emmalition. We are so motherfucking back watching VaatiVidya's latest Elden Ring lore video. I've avoided a few of them that we've missed so far because of spoilers and stuff, but I basically have finished the DLC, kind of, just haven't quite beat Radahn yet. I don't want to talk about it. But my lovely mod has confirmed that the Lore of Elden Ring is foul is a safe video to watch without having 100% finished the DLC, including beating the final boss. So it's been a little while since we've watched a VaatiVidya video, and I'm really excited because they just bring me so much joy, and I feel like I've spent most of the DLC sort of picking things up and being like, I can't wait to hear Vaati explain this to me, or this is such an item that Vaati is going to explain to me. So I'm really excited to get back into it, especially with a video about BAYLE, because I think he may be, I don't know if it was my top boss fight, certainly theatrically it's my top, maybe joint with Mesmer or leader. I'm definitely going to put a spoiler warning at the beginning of this video, although if you're watching this and you haven't finished the DLC, then that's on you. Yeah, I think the theatre of BAYLE might be my favorite, so I am really looking forward to this video. I'm not the most attentive person when I'm playing these games, because I think playing for a let's play can be quite difficult sometimes, because you're kind of trying to play the game on video and sort of progress the story and chat to your audience, you guys, at the same time. So I can tend to miss things. So I'm excited to sort of rewind, go through that quest line again with Vaati and discover some more lore of Elden Ring. So with all that being said, let's watch The Lore of Elden Ring is Foul. I am being a brave soldier, putting faith in my internet to play this at 2160p. Is that how you say that? I know 1080p is how you say things. Is 2160 a normal way to say that? I don't know. 4K. Let's go.
Ages ago, before the Erd Tree, the Elden Lord Placidusax was challenged by BAYLE, a dragon that lacked the stone scales that made his kin immortal.
Aww.
So, in mutual hatred, they fought, flesh against stone.
God, he's cool. He's so cool. God, he's good for an intro, isn't he? Damn. That was cool.
Welcome to our second video on the Dragons of Elden Ring, which refines their stories with the extra content we now have from the Shadow of the Erd Tree. The DLC has revealed many truths regarding the Drakes, Dragon Communion, and so much more. But what I want to start this video off with is the Crucible, because I think it actually has a lot to do with the story of Placidusax and BAYLE. So what is the Crucible? Well, the aspects of the Crucible describe it as a place where all life was once blended together, and Ordovis's greatsword says that it has a red tint that exemplifies the nature of primordial gold, which is said to be close in nature to life itself. This primordial matter, as it's called in the Gilded Greatshield description, would eventually go on to become the Erd Tree. But this always confused me, because if the Crucible existed at the beginning of life on this world, before the Elden Ring, then how could the Crucible have traces of gold? Shouldn't the gold have come from the Elden Ring, which we know arrived later?
Good question.
It didn't make sense to me, but now, with the DLC, I think I understand.
Oh, I'm glad you do.
Count Ymir brings us the revelation that life itself was...
God, this was a cool side quest with Count Ymir. Like, the side quests in the DLC have been so just like what words am I looking for, like profoundly tied together. Like, it's just felt like they make so much sense in terms of the cadence and the story and the narrative. I've really enjoyed this, and obviously the quest to meet BAYLE. Just phenomenal storytelling. in my
created
opinion.
in a cosmic rupture of the Greater Will long ago. We know that the Greater Will has gold as its aspect, and so it is that I think gold is just an innate part of the primordial matter of the world.
Cool.
Even before
That
the
makes sense.
Elden Ring made landfall and put its roots into the Crucible, so to speak. All of this is to say that now I think the ancient dragons were some of the earliest beings born from this primordial soup.
Makes sense. They look
embody
so
many
freaking
aspects of the
crusty.
Crucible, after all. Horn, tail, breath, wing, fang. So when Meta, Mother of Fingers, arrived on this world to
So creepy.
scout things out, I think the ancient dragons might have been the earliest candidates for lordship. Then the Elden Ring was sent down, in the form of the Elden Beast, upon a golden star. And with that, I think these ancients of the Crucible were granted order. Remember, the Elden Beast is the living incarnation of the concept of order.
And looks like a dragon.
Incidentally, the Elden Beast's internal name is Nebula Dragon, and it does somewhat resemble an ancient dragon.
That's what I'm saying,
It even
Vaati.
spews the same golden breath as Placidusax does. Of course, these
That's what I'm
things
saying.
could be just coincidental, but what if they're not? What if the Elden
Nothing is a coincidence in these games. Nothing. I'm telling you.
Beast's form was chosen to help ensure that this vassal beast and the concept of order would be accepted by the ancient dragons? That's a fun thought, I think.
That's
Whatever
cool.
the case, we learn from the remembrance of the Dragon Lord that Placidusax was chosen as Elden Lord. But the question remains,
Very cool.
Who was his god? Who would be the vessel of the Elden Ring? Was it actually the Elden Beast? Or, more likely, I think, did he have a god equivalent to Marika,
Ooh.
who chose him as Elden Lord in the first place? In the end, we just don't know.
Interesting.
All we do know is that something went wrong with
Very.
Placidusax's order, and his god eventually fled, with Placidusax endlessly awaiting their return.
That's
Whoever
kind of
they
sad.
were, it's possible that this god was also an Empyrean, a valid candidate for godhood. And like the other Empyreans that we know of, it's possible that Placidusax's god was also an Empyrean chosen by the Fingers.
Oh my
And
god,
that idea
this is a lot.
makes me wonder if Meta, Mother of Fingers, held any influence in this Dragon Age. The main reference to fingers in this age comes from the Cincadea.
Oh, I didn't
a
even notice
five-fingered
that.
dagger wielded by the high-ranking clergyman of Farum Azula who served the dragons. The
Fingers on
Cincadea
it.
celebrates a beast's 5 fingers, which
Shit.
are symbolic of the intelligence granted upon their kind. Now, this description doesn't
Wow.
mention who or what granted the beast's intelligence, but in an older version of this description, it does. Back in version 1.0, it was said to be the Greater Will that granted the beast's intelligence.
Oh.
So, this mention of the Greater Will was removed by From Software, and yet it does make sense that the Greater Will would bestow intelligence upon the beasts, considering Placidusax was Elden Lord at the time. So here's my theory on why it was removed. What if From Software removed this mention of the Greater Will because they wanted to keep the lore a little bit more open-ended? What if they
Perhaps.
wanted to leave room down the line for another character who might have been capable of bestowing
DLC 2.
intelligence on behalf of the Greater Will?
Yes.
This is just an idea, but what if it was Meta who granted intelligence to the beasts through fingers? But however it happened, the beasts did gain intelligence, and a really great line on that topic comes to us from the description of bestial vitality, which reads, "Having gained intelligence, the beasts must have felt how their wildness slipped away as civilization took hold." The way this last line is worded is strangely sad.
I was going to say, it sounds like intelligence being bestowed on them is a bad thing, and like less of a gift and more trying to keep them in line and keep some sense of order, which I guess does kind of hark back to the golden order versus the crucible. The crucible is this more like wild, imperfect, for want of a better phrase, like misfit sort of thing, whereas the golden order is order. So it makes me wonder if there's parallels there. I feel like I don't know anything about this in terms of the dragons and the fingers, and I don't know how much input I'm going to have, but I am excited to learn. There's been previous Vaati videos that we've watched that I feel like I've had so many theories on, whereas this just befuddles me. So I'll try and chime in, because else I'm just watching the video, not adding anything, and it's completely pointless. But yeah, I feel like that is quite interesting, the way that is worded.
I feel like it highlights that while something was being gained here, thanks to the intelligence that was being bestowed upon them, a crucial part of the beast's nature was being lost as well.
That's what I was trying to say.
Aude had taken their wildness away. And just like with the aspects of the Crucible, such wildness and
I'm
chaos
so smart.
would be looked back upon with scorn. But as we know from characters like Godfrey,
yes,
the chains of order can be thrown off, and wildness can be...
You don't know how good it feels to just feel like on the same page as this intelligent man. Like, I'm by no means trying to say that I'm on his level, even slightly, not even in the same elevator, never mind on the same level, but it's just nice to hear my thoughts said back to me, because I know that I'm kind of trying to pick up what he's putting down, because some of this is really complicated. So it's validating, okay? That's all I'm saying.
Be embraced. Just so, aspects of the Crucible can persist, even if they are suppressed. For these horns, feathers, fangs, all, according to the DLC, are interminable evolutionary gifts.
Yes.
Symbols of primacy, seemingly baked into the DNA of all life.
Love that
from the
hippo.
Crucible. This is why
Such
I
a cool
think
fight.
that at certain points
Oh
in
no,
history,
this is the most theatrical
Crucible
fight,
of life
actually.
would randomly throw a curveball into the mix, a wild card that challenges the established order. In the Golden Age of the Ode Tree, it was the Omen and the Misbegotten.
Yep.
And in the Golden Age of the Ancient Dragons, I'd like to propose that this curveball was Bale the Dread.
Is it? Interesting. So he's like the runt of the dragon litter. Ah.
There is something
All
that
right.
I think is really interesting about Bales Heart.
Oh,
The first
cute.
thing you'll probably notice about Bales Heart is that it's...
I want to chime in before he does. Other than the fact it looks fucked, these kind of look like horns, like of the Omen and Misbegotten, like crucible horns here, and then these bits sticking out. I suppose you could see them like almost rhino horns or something, but they're kind of giving me an element of teeth as well, like really sharp teeth, like shark teeth. And there's an item in Bonnie Village. I've forgotten what it is. Was it a whip that had teeth on it? Just a thought, but this looks like horns to me. Okay, you'll go.
And
you'll go,
bilateral,
Vaati.
as opposed to the hearts of the ancient dragons, which are literally made of stone.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know
I think
that.
was a part of a genetic mutation.
They look like
one
horns
that
as well.
made Bale weaker in the sense that he was born mortal, without the stone scales of the ancient dragons that twist time
Aw.
and make them undying. But I think it also made him stronger in the sense that he was filled with a mad
More
hunger
emotional.
and a fierceness of spirit that you'd think could only come from one faced with the inevitable prospect of death.
Yeah, because
The
if you
other
know you're
thing
not going to
that's interesting
die.
about Bale's Heart is that it's dotted with horn-like gravel stones. Gravel stones, as you may know, are the compound stones that make up the stone scales of the ancient dragons.
Very
and
cool.
Gravel stone is found within the hearts of all of the drakes, but what makes Bale's heart different is that the gravel stone in his heart is uniquely horn-like. And considering the significance of horns in the DLC, the fact they spell this out must suggest a connection to the Crucible. Right?
Yes.
I feel like there's no way this description is a coincidence. The Beast Horn item from the DLC explains that the Crucible has a particularly strong influence on the beasts of the Realm of Shadow, causing many to grow horns despite the characteristics of their species. It was in this land that the vitality of the Crucible flourished, and so it is that I think Bale's biatrial heart, dotted with horn-like gravel stones and glistening with deep red liquor, was likely a mutation of the Crucible. Thus, Bale,
so he was a
father
little
of the
freak of
Drakes,
nature, huh?
was born as the first of the ancient dragon's lowborn descendants. These drakes are unique from the ancient dragons. Whereas the ancient dragons have 4 limbs, 4 wings, stone scales, red lightning, and 2 horns, the drakes
So
have
badass.
2 hind legs, 2 wings, and a single horn. Most importantly though, they don't have stone scales, making them mortal and paltry compared to their forebears. But if BAYLE was the father, then who was the mother? Well, it can only really be Grail, the great mother of dragons, who might have been born in a similar way to BAYLE.
I forgot about her.
Perhaps she's even the product of BAYLE mating with a different ancient dragon and continued BAYLE's bloodline on her own.
wow.
It's not completely clear. Whatever the case, as time went on, it seems BAYLE's descendants became lesser, not only compared to the ancient dragons, but compared to BAYLE himself as well. And I say this because BAYLE's later descendants are lacking a few of his key aspects.
Yeah.
Take BAYLE's magma aspect,
No
for
lava.
instance. According to the Talisman of Dread, this aspect was so strong that when BAYLE roared, it would cause the Jagged Peak's molten fury to boil and churn.
Wow. Oh,
And-
I just want to say something about Jagged Peak, and also just quickly something about the editing of VaatiVidya's videos. Is I really like this new, I don't know if he's done it in the last few videos because I haven't watched the last few, but I really like the what am I trying to say? Help me. I really like how he's showing the item descriptions on screen. It looks really good. That's all I was trying to say. And also Jagged Peak, I feel like stylistically is really mirroring the stuff that's coming out of his heart, which is really cool. There's probably nothing in that, but I just think that these peaks almost mirror those teeth-like things that are sticking out the side of his heart. I just thought that was quite cool. Just think it's nice, like just from a purely aesthetic point of view.
Peak's
it's
molten
cool.
fury
It's
to
cool.
boil and churn. And I love this design choice for BAYLE because it's so poetic. BAYLE is born of the ancient dragons who were made of rock, and what is magma but molten rock?
Like his heart.
Bales Fire
squishy.
is noted to be incredibly
Gooey.
fierce, so if BAYLE had any stone scales, perhaps they were melted away. I believe this fierce fire is also a defining trait of BAYLE's kin as well. You'll note that every furnace golem has a drake inside of its basket, and it's been speculated that these bodies might have played a part in fueling these monstrosities. Speaking of Bales Fire,
Do we think that the dragons inside the furnace golems were descendants of BAYLE then, and thus they have this kind of like magma lava power because they've like slowly absorbed the power of the drakes?
it's
maybe?
been speculated that these bodies might have
Is that
played a
obvious?
part in fueling
It's cool, whatever
these
it is.
monstrosities.
I like it.
Speaking of Bales Fire, even Bale's red lightning is touched by flame. It's explicitly called flame lightning, and it's unique not only
Sweet.
to him, but also to a few of the other drakes on the Jagged Peak. This is significant because red lightning was a hallmark of the ancient dragons, and none of Bale's later descendants have mastered lightning at all. Specifically, the drakes that can summon flame lightning are the Jagged Peak drakes encountered on your ascent.
This was
up
such
the
a cool
mountain.
area. Oh my
These
god.
ones exclusively drop an item called Dragon Scale Flesh, which marks them as aged dragons. BAYLE too is called an old dragon, so perhaps their older bloodline, being closer to the ancient dragons, explains this unique lightning that they've retained, something that their descendants have lost over time.
So awesome.
I want
Oh
to
my
note
God.
also that Dragon Scale Flesh mentions these Jagged Peak drakes have inverted scales, which actually look a lot like gravel stones, so perhaps these
They
drakes
do.
really are supposed to be closer to the ancients in bloodline and nature, even if their models aren't any different than the other countless drakes in the game. Another interesting thing about Bale's Flame Lightning incantation and his other Dragon Communion
Ooh.
incantation is that they both require pure arcane to cast, as
Ooh.
opposed to something like Placidusax's Ruin, which is cast with pure faith. Placidusax having faith is easy enough to explain. Placidusax was Elden Lord to the Greater Will, and retains his faith even in his place beyond time, after being abandoned. So, of course, his remembrance incantation also requires faith to channel. As for Bale's arcane incantations, well, arcane is a little bit trickier to explain as a stat, but basically, arcane relates to one's innate qualities.
Okay.
The arcane weapons of Eochaid, for example, can be swung through the air via the wielder's will alone.
Cool.
And the Albinaurics, born of primordial dew, are said to cast sorcery with their innate arcaneness. So when it comes to Bale, of course he would have incantations that require the highest arcane investment, because he's a character defined by his unwavering will and fury.
But wow.
Why was Bale so furious? Well,
That's so good, isn't it? That's so good. These games are so good.
one clue might come from the horn-sent phantom in
Wow.
the Elder's hovel, who implores Bale to hurry and lay it all to waste. To lay waste to the proud, the conceited, every last one of that arrogant lot.
Who is he talking
To be
about?
clear, this elder horn-sent phantom might be calling on Bale to lay Marika and her kin to waste, specifically.
Probably.
since
Everyone
they
hates her for
urged
some
his
reason.
kind.
Can't imagine
But
why.
I think there's a parallel being drawn between the Golden Order and the Ancient Dragon Order here. I think this elder considers them all a part of the same arrogant lot. A defining trait of the Greater Will's orders across every age we know of, after all, is a pride among those in power and their dismissal of those seen as lesser. In the age of the Erd Tree, the lesser were those touched by the Crucible, the Tarnished, and many more besides. And in the age of the Ancient Dragons, the lessers were the beasts, who the Dragon Priestess actually insults as foul and lowly in the DLC. And then eventually the Drakes too were considered foul and lowly.
God, everyone's
And
getting on the
ancients
wrong
would go
side
on
of
to
a
have
society.
intense hatred for them, as they considered them their lowborn kin.
Oh,
So yeah, I think there's a parallel between
It's
the
sad.
Ancient Dragon's Order and Marika's, and I think this is why the Elder Horn-sent Phantom is calling on Bale to lay waste to all of it.
fair.
Now, the Ancient Dragons might be excessively prideful in all of their depictions, but I do want to note that Bale was likely once on their side, because as we've discussed with Marika, being called a traitor suggests that there was a kinship originally at some point.
Yeah.
So Bale might have had a kinship with the Ancient Dragons as well. It might not have been a great kinship, but he must have been considered a part of their order, at least. But then the Ancient Dragons would label him a tyrant.
What
and
happened to you,
It
Bale?
all suggests that Bale went against the established order and an established peace, harbinging destruction upon it all, as retribution for their conceit and their discrimination, perhaps. I think, just like with Seath the Scaleless from Dark Souls,
throwback.
Bale sought revenge upon his prideful, immortal
That made me
kin.
nostalgic.
There's a huge parallel between these two characters, but unlike Seath, who switched sides to find his advantage, Bale took a way more direct approach and
Good.
challenged the Dragon Lord himself.
Bales Design is unbelievably amazing. I want to pick that apart in a minute. He's missing a leg and he's still such a
According
tank.
to the Talisman of the Dread, Bale's challenge to the ancient Dragon Lord ended in grievous mutual injury, which has forced his weight to now be supported by his tail. And
Vaati's going to do the descriptions for us, but I just want to quickly get in there and just say, yeah, how amazing this character design is. Like, from his raggedy wings that kind of remind me of that torn fabric that's all over the Lands Between and all over the DLC, like everywhere. And I started to wonder what that was when we last did a video like this, whether it was the baldachin robe material. Like, I just love how it kind of looks like torn fabric, because that seems to be a repeated theme. His janky ass spine just going in all directions, just like the Jagged Peak. The fact he's missing a leg, like, he just looks fucking done. Like, he looks so beat, and I just think it's fantastic how fearsome he is in spite of all that, and like all of these like egregious bodily injuries and things that make him look so jagged add to how fearsome and great he seems, because you can't help but have respect for a dragon who is in this shape and still fucks you up. It's
he
so
lost
cool.
a talon, which now terminates in a sharp bone that's wreathed in lightning. And as for Placidusax's wounds, his body is covered in scars and
Same with
gashes.
Placidusax, to
his
be
tail
fair.
has been cut, and most notably, 3 of his 5 heads have been severed, 2 of which are still clenched upon Bale's body to this day.
Fucking
The Dragon
cool.
Priestess notes
I didn't notice
after
that.
inflicting and suffering these grievous wounds, Bale made a hasty
Wow.
retreat. But the damage was done, clearly, and I reckon we could
his
even
wings.
speculate that
his wings.
perhaps Bale's assault even played a part
It's like
in
cloth.
why Placidusax's god fled. Or perhaps a part in why Placidusax decided to hide away, safe in this place beyond time. This part of the timeline is still unclear to me, but
Sorry, I'm just going to be really annoying
perhaps
and just go
Bale's
back
assault even
to
played in why Placidusax's god fled.
Placidusax's design as well, because I've not really spoke about this before, but if you've watched any of the lore video reactions that we've done on here before, I spoke a lot about the mirror images in Elden Ring and the twin aspects of Elden Ring and how everything is mirrored. Like Renala and Relina, the twin blades, like everything seems to have like 2 sides to it. Like, I've typically can't think of many examples, but hopefully you guys remember us talking about this before. But I just wanted to say that I love the symmetry of this introduction here. The symmetry of how he's in the middle of this theatre and his heads are mirrored like this in kind of twin way. Also, he kind of looks like the 2 fingers while he's there like that, which just, I mean, it's a thing. What it is, I don't know. Someone else can figure that out. But I just noticed that, yeah, it's kind of giving, oh my God, I've got hair in my mouth. Sorry, help me. Such a professional. He looks like the 2 fingers, he's mirrored, and I can't help but feel like the way his wings are kind of cupped like this, it's giving like a birthing pod and taking me back to that primordial idea that Vaati keeps talking about with the crucible. It just feels like it's ready to hatch. I just think it's an amazing way for him to hibernate and wait for whoever the hell he's waiting for, whether it's his Elden Lord, whether it's us, whether it was someone to save him. I'm not 100% sure that I know, but I just think that is a phenomenal way for them to have him suspended.
Perhaps a part in
it
why
says so
Placidusax
much about Elden Ring to
decided
me,
hide away,
having him
safe
like
in this
that.
place beyond time.
I love it, I really do.
This part of the timeline is still unclear to me, but I think Bale's tyranny did do damage, whenever it was that it occurred. And after this, it inspired Placidusax to hatch a plan. For as he did with Bale, he saw in man a fierce spirit and insatiable hunger, the very things that he thought might one day fell Bale the Dread and his drakes, who would become sacrifices.
Wow.
All.
Oh God, oh, bloody love this game. It's good, innit? It's good,
In
innit?
a time long past, Bale turned upon the Dragon Lord. The foul traitor assailed our master and inflicted a grievous wound, only to make a hasty retreat, becoming a sworn enemy of the brood. Since that day, Bale and his bloodline, the Drakes, have served as sacrifices for Dragon Communion.
Such a great
This
voice.
is Florisax, the Dragon Priestess, and here at the Grand Altar she explains the origins of Dragon Communion. that there is a mad hunger and fierceness of spirit that only flows from those young and short of sight, and that after being wounded, Placidusax saw in mankind these qualities that could one day bring about Bale's doom. This hunger, unfathomable to the ancient dragons, would be weaponized. And so the ancients tempted the Drake warriors with the hearts of the Drakes, who were their lowborn kin turned foe. To me, this is one of the most satisfying lore points of the DLC. Previously, we only knew that Drake warriors were driven to consume dragon hearts and pursue the strength of dragons for the sake of the sublime beauty and awe that the dragons inspired. And that was reason enough, but it's such a great unexpected twist that Dragon Communion was founded to tempt Drake warriors to consume the heart of Bale.
Wow.
In what the Dragon Priestess calls the purest form of communion.
That's really cool.
The fullest sating of hunger and consummation as a dragon whole. And speaking of Dragon Communion origins, from the Rock Heart, we learn that the first partakers of Dragon Communion were humans who actually consumed the rock hearts of ancient dragons, not
crunchy.
The fleshy hearts of drakes. These rock hearts of the ancients were consumed in the ancient original form of Dragon Communion.
How did they eat them?
Turning the humans into a new form for the first time.
Oh my
so
god.
One thing I've been wondering is why the original form of Dragon Communion required this consumption of ancient dragon hearts specifically. Were these test subjects of sorts, or perhaps a showcase of what Drake Knights could aspire to? As far as I can tell, there are 3 stone hearts in-game. One belongs to the ancient dragon man.
Such a great name for a boss.
One, I assume, would belong to whoever left it behind.
I can't tell you how funny I find it that they called that boss Ancient Dragon Man. Like the amount of really rare, strange names for like bosses and enemies and characters in this game. And then the one time they could have cooked, they were like, okay, so this man, he's going to be an ancient dragon man. What should we call him? And the boardroom was just like, I got it. Ancient Dragon Man. And they were like, write that down, Steve, write that down. I just think it's fantastic. So good.
Upon the Jagged Peak, and the last belongs to the Dragon Priestess. According to her heart, the priestess was once an ancient dragon herself, but sacrificed that form for feeble flesh to aid in the destruction of Bale the Dread.
Cool.
She assumed human form to share dragon communion with the world, and to this end she attends the Grand Altar, bestowing the favour of the Dragon Lord upon the Drake warriors who passed through here in that pursuit of Bale.
Nice.
The fact that Florisax attends a site of dragon communion makes me wonder if the 2 ancient dragons with rock hearts might have sacrificed their original forms in a similar way, giving up their hearts to take over the bodies of the first partakers of dragon communion. And this is just speculation, but there is a dead ancient dragon at each of the 2 sites of dragon communion in the lands between, so what if these were the 2 ancient dragons who gave up their rock hearts? That's a fun theory, I think. The idea that these rock hearts were given up willingly is supported by the fact that we know the first partakers of Dragon Communion were loyal to the ancient dragons and dedicated to their cause. For evidence of this, let's analyze the ancient dragon then, starting with the dragon hunter's katana.
It's such a cool sword.
This katana
Look at the teeth on it.
With a spine of gravelstone and has what is called a jagged gravelstone aura.
So sweet.
Which is akin to the aura that the Dragon Communion basins give off.
Very similar.
Fittingly too, for this agent of the ancient dragons, his weapon, like all gravelstone weapons, has an anti-dragon effect. But his role wasn't solely to hunt the drakes. His katana reads, formerly a Dragon Communion warrior, the ancient dragon man was once arbiter of those worthy to devour Bale. That is, before you killed him and took his weapon for
It's a good weapon too. It really helped with that area.
Incidentally,
Not
the
gonna
ancient
lie.
dragon man's death might be what allows Egon to progress in his quest.
I am sorry.
Oh, Egon.
I repent. Oh, come
Such
no
a great
closer.
voice actor.
Oh, the horror. Please, savage me no further.
Oh, Egon.
So this
Bless
pleading
him.
from Egon could be directed at BAYLE, who does haunt him and who is a dragon one should dread, but his begging for mercy could also be directed at the ancient dragon man, whose red phantom is just down the way, acting, as we mentioned, as a judge of those worthy to devour BAYLE, the dreaded one. But Egon, wounded as he is from a previous encounter with BAYLE,
Ouch.
he's in no state to challenge the ancient dragon man, let alone BAYLE himself. Fittingly, it's been showcased by Zlovsky II that the ancient dragon man's human visage is draconian in origin, and as per the character creation screen, draconians have the stony face of the people of the ancient dragons. As mentioned in our previous video on dragons, there is evidence of humans being within the ancient dragon's culture upon Farum Azula, so perhaps the man who consumed this dragon heart was once loyal to their order. Alternatively, if you're in the camp of those who believe that this face
his name
was
is
never
Ancient
meant to be
Dragon Man,
seen,
so that tracks.
you could opt to believe that the ancient dragon man was once from the land of reeds, given he wields a great katana. Dragon communion warriors are commonly from the land of reeds, it seems. You can look to Yura and Eleonora, or even the great katana looted near the Ghost Flame Dragon in the Graveside Plains as more proof of that. But whoever the ancient dragon man was, now he occupies the dragon pit, which from the environment you can figure out is actually a bastion of those in service to the ancient dragons in the realm of shadow.
Wow.
And I say this because the lead up to the dragon pit features a ton of ancient dragon statues.
They've all got their heads chopped
though
off.
They've all
That's
fallen
one thing I
into
noticed.
disrepair. Additionally, in the dragon pit itself, you'll find fire-breathing beastmen who we know were servants of the ancient dragons.
This area was quite
and
stressful.
The basins here are filled with what I can only assume is
Ketchup.
the blood of drakes. This is a place that serves the process of dragon communion, and there's even a magma worm here that resides. As you would have learned from our last video on the dragons, the magma worms were once dragon communion warriors. According to the magma breath incantation, those who have dined on the hearts of drakes will find their humanity slowly slipping away.
Yeah.
And once they fully succumb to their fate, they are left no more than worms that crawl the earth. So when a drake warrior eats a drake heart, they inevitably, it seems, turn into magma worms.
I forgot about that.
I think we can finally understand why
That's
by
gnarly.
talking about what happens to us when we consume Bales Heart at the grand altar and harness his power. His incantations both read, "Even after being consumed, the throbbing heart of BAYLE continues to resist its subjugation, never weakening. One day the fire within will consume the very body and soul of its communion devourer." One day. So could this never weakening resistance not also be true for the hearts of dragons that drake warriors consume? As mentioned by the magma breath incantation, it is the fate of those who partake in dragon communion to succumb and become a magma worm, which I think finally makes sense because BAYLE is a magma dragon, and the drakes are his kin, who have inherited his heat. Even before the DLC, the magma worm's scale sword was hinting to us that dragon communion is a grave transgression, for which the magma worms were cursed to crawl the earth upon their bellies as shadows of their former selves. And finally, with the DLC, dragon communion being called a curse makes sense. Once consumed, I think these drake hearts, still beating, are resisting their subjugation, just as Bales Heart describes, and they eventually overwhelm their devourer, turning their vessel not into a glorious dragon, but into an accursed land-bound worm instead. Wow. So the sacrifice rituals that the drake warriors were performing in awe of the dragons were having dubious results. And yet, the warriors continued to indulge their appetites,
I mean, it's just a typical story of greed and power in that sense, isn't it? Like, it's a transgression. It's proved it's probably going to curse you and ruin your very being and your very life. But people in Elden Ring and in life in general, they're just willing to risk it because they think they're the special one that won't be corrupted, all in the pursuit of power over the land. So it doesn't surprise me that they carried on anyway.
According to the Dragon Lord's plan. Such a grave transgression also retroactively helps to explain Exekis, who was the Dragon Communion Revenger, who was so furious at the Drake warriors that he did not forget his hatred even as he succumbed to the Scarlet Rot. But how many Drake warriors have there really been over the ages? Well, to understand that, let's read the description of the dragon's Calibloom, which you'll find on your ascent of the Jagged Peak. This flower is dotted with gravelstone and has an uncanny shape, coursing with hot blood. Its description reveals that a single flower is said to blossom only once from the hearts of dead warriors who oft partook of Dragon Communion. So every time you loot this, you're actually plucking it from the bodies of dead Dragon Communion warriors, which is a fact that really helps to tell a story. This Drake warrior likely died to this dragon. 6 Drake warriors died on their way up the peak, and this one got hit by the most telegraphed boulder of all time. What's more, Calibloom might also actually help to explain what arteria leaves are, which are also found on human bodies, and are also coursing with blood. So I bet these grow from the hearts of dead warriors as well. But let me take my speculation on Calibloom one step further. So Calibloom's wide red leaves are essentially identical to the leaves on these plants, right? So I think that might mean that these plants might be Calibloom as well. They just don't have the flower anymore, because the flower is said to blossom only
so there was
once.
a field of dead warriors, maybe.
These plants blanket the earth in really appropriate places for the story. Here at the Grand Altar of Dragon Communion, for example, and here at the Jagged Peak Summit, which is Bales' domain, where all the Dragon Communion warriors are coming to challenge him. So the fact that his arena might be carpeted in
that's all from bodies.
And the fact that this arena does feature a ton of skeletons is meant to convey, I think, that Bale has seen many challenges and that all have failed to take him down. But what about the plants at the Grand Altar? Did a great battle take place here as well? Between...
I don't know if I'm misunderstanding what the Dragon Communion or what consuming the heart of the drakes does, despite having been told just now, but maybe they're by the altar because they're consuming them and that's just overtaking their bodies and they just can't handle the power within them, and people are dying near the altar because of that. Could be.
Drake and Drake Warrior? Well, I think there's evidence that it did. As if the gargantuan dead drake
such a cool feature,
what looks like its heart missing from its chest wasn't enough. Walk upon its wing and you'll be able to loot Dragon Communion harpoons, which I can only assume you're pulling out of its flesh.
Yuck.
These were tools of the old Dragon Communion warriors, the keyword there being old, which, in addition to the harpoons sporting sharp gravelstone, might suggest these warriors had the ancient dragon's favor back when the ancients were taking a direct hand in wiping out the drakes. As for what actually killed the gargantuan drake, if you go behind it, you'll notice an enormous spike jutting out from the nape of its neck. And if you travel over the drake's head, you'll actually be able to get up there and get a closer look down at the thing.
Did we climb this?
Through the center of the object is this straight piece of what looks like metal, around which some sort of stone growth has formed. What's more, the metal has a blue-green tinge to it. So what is this thing? My first impulse was just to call it a huge Dragon Communion harpoon. The metal rod down the center might have simply corroded over time, and the smaller harpoons do actually have a bit of a green tint to them as well. And green rust is common to metals like copper and brass, after all. On that note, I've seen some speculation online that the green could indicate that the metal is
verdigris, is that what oh my god, what's his name? Moore. It was Moore, the cute little NPC. When we beat him and he dropped all of his armor, it was made of verdigris, which said it was like gifted from an outer god or something like that. Like the metal was gifted from an outer god, and it's like rusty, which maybe would explain the color, but that's interesting.
Verdigris, which, according to the verdigris discus, is a corroded metal known for its heft. This is a great theory, and it really helps to tie the harpoons to crafting techniques that would have become unique to the realm of Shadow. But to play devil's advocate, none of this really explains the rounded stone growths around the metal, which aren't sharp gravel stone like you'd
deep
think
fried.
They should be on a harpoon. One theory I came across that's really cool is that this stone buildup might be fulgurite, which apparently is a sort of fossilized lightning.
That's
that
cool.
Can occur from lightning strikes.
The hell?
Therefore, another theory is that this giant stake might actually be the remnant of a lightning strike, or perhaps more accurately, a dragon communion harpoon that has been imbued.
Hold on. Vaati didn't say this, but I'm pretty sure, I could just Google it, but I'm too lazy. I'm pretty sure that Moore's, because we only played this last week, Moore's armor set said that verdigris was like a mysterious metal that came from the outer gods, or was said to come from the outer gods, and now you're telling me that said mysterious metal has some kind of deep fried lightning on it? Lightning, which is generally associated with the color gold, golden order, outer god. I'm just saying words now. I don't know. There's something here. I can feel it.
I feel like that combines all of the theories together.
I've got more to say about that, I think.
EDUTY
I need to go away and think about
this
it.
Geology knowledge on us.
Geology
But for this giant
Love it.
drake to have been struck down by lightning, that would suggest that the ancient dragons were around to smite it down.
Maybe
So,
someone else did
is
that.
there evidence for the ancient dragons being a part of this battle? Well, maybe. An item called Sharp Gravelstone is found nearby on the corpses of lesser drakes. The description reveals that this Sharp Gravelstone is actually the scale of an ancient dragon that has supped on the blood of lesser dragons, suggesting ancient dragons were here, I think, and that they were feasting upon the drakes. What's more, red fulgerbloom is found on the south coast of the Jagged Peak and is said to bloom where the red lightning of the ancient dragons strikes the earth. This description seems to suggest this flower was, in fact, not set to bloom by the flame lightning that assails the peak, but rather by the red lightning of the ancient dragons.
Oh, this is so cool.
And this is probably a good time to mention that there are ancient dragons upon the Jagged Peak who are not hostile to BAYLE. So it might not have even been the hostile ancient dragons that generated the fulgerbloom or supped upon the drakes. It might have been friendly ones. This brings us to ancient dragon Senesax, who, among other ancients, is actually on BAYLE's side. And it's very interesting to note that these ancient dragons saw some merit in BAYLE's challenge to Placidusax. For them to switch sides, you'd think there really must have been some injustice in the Dragon Lord's persecution of their lowborn kin.
I mean,
either that, or perhaps these traitorous ancients simply believed that BAYLE was stronger.
I would assume an injustice.
And maybe they believed that might makes right.
Knowing this game the way I do.
Impossible to know for sure. We learn about these traitorous ancient dragons from the hefty red lightning pot, which does this lightning AoE where it strikes and reads, "The ancient dragons who betrayed their lord to side with a tyrant were known for wielding branching red lightning." At first I thought that the branching red lightning would be this attack, but it can't be. These are actually called lightning
They
stakes,
look like
and
forks.
they're the hallmark of other dragons who definitely are not on BAYLE's side. Thus, I think the branching red lightning is instead this sort of chain lightning that is characterized by its ability to branch out and chain between enemies.
That's
this
very
is
cool.
the same lightning that Senesax and the new lightning consumables generate. One fascinating thing that happens after you defeat Senesax is that when you reload the area, The space Senesax occupied will instead be filled with a number of these slimes that are imbued with red lightning.
I hate these guys.
The implication being, I think, that Senesax's flesh has degraded into this form. Fun fact, in the DLC Early Access, these were accidentally silver tears imbued with red lightning.
Oh, no way.
They quickly corrected to these fleshier variants.
Oh, so they're similar then.
Release.
Reflecting
and I think it's
each
a
other.
significant change because in the game's data, this variant of slime is called Wriggle Carrion, and carrion is explicitly defined as a dead animal's decaying flesh.
Okay.
You might not think that the ancient dragons would have flesh, but they do. They can bleed, they can be poisoned, they can rot, and they can die if they are severely wounded. So too, apparently, can they become undying carrion, imbued with red lightning. Now, it is a bit weird that these are the only ancient dragons to turn into this sort of carrion.
They look like Bales Heart.
Maybe it only happens to Senesax and her brood because they wield that branching red lightning that we talked about. Maybe that's how the carrion inherited this red lightning, at least. Anyway, I think From Software implemented this carrion spawn because they wanted to signpost other areas where ancient dragons like Senesax would have once stood upon the Jagged Peak.
Yeah.
So now we know that where there's carrion, there was once an ancient dragon. And sure enough,
That's awesome.
Wherever you find this red lightning infused carrion, you'll also commonly find ancient dragon smithing stones nearby, which are the scales of these beasts. Therefore, I think that in these places ancient dragons died, but whether they were allied with BAYLE and died to Drake
Who could
warriors,
say?
or whether they were allied with Placidusax and died assaulting the
I
Jagged
can't tell you
Peak,
how much they look
I
like
think is
his heart
up to you
me.
to decide.
Curse you, Bale.
You, Bale!
Oh, it's good, isn't it? It's really good. Oh, my favourite NPC questline of the DLC. 100%. He's fantastic.
What a sight.
That
A
VA.
warrior true, if ever one there was. A fellow Drake warrior.
In Egon's second encounter,
God, he's mad for it,
he's
isn't he?
somehow made it to the base of the peak, despite his injuries. I suppose that by defeating the ancient dragon man, in a way, you cleared the path for him that he could not conquer himself. Because of you, he can go down and out of the chasm that requires a dragon communion warrior to be brave and show no fear.
Egon. Piteous Egon. Do you not remember? Conjure.
I respect Egon so much for, even though he couldn't beat the ancient dragon man, he still felt confident enough to scale a mountain and fight the actual dragon. I'm impressed. Like, you have to back yourself.
Your past,
You have to.
How once you were.
God, he's cool.
When fear was yet foreign to you. Drake warrior, dear friend, grant me this one wish. Take this finger, my finger, scale the Jagged Peak, face
Oh, I guess he
the
didn't
dread,
scale it, did
and
he?
when
He
you
just
do,
teleported in.
Summon me. Summon my soul. My limbs are limbs no more.
Oh, dude.
My heart is twice over filled with fear. But a Drake warrior I remain. And my
fair enough.
soul yet lies on the mountain.
I forgot that he didn't climb the mountain. We just summoned him. So I take back what I said about his confidence.
With this, you bring Egon on your quest. Or rather,
Oh,
he brings
it's
you
cool.
on his. Egon's bell-bearing that you loot here can be used to craft Egon's harpoons, which
Very
can be
nice.
fired from his bow, which is imbued with Egon's obsession. The harpoons read, "The broken Drake warrior Egon made these one by one in the midst of his agony so that Bale the Dread himself would know fear.
Wow.
But I think Bale has already known fear at the behest of a great enemy who he fled from after suffering his grievous wounds, which included the loss of a leg. It's the same as what happened to Egon.
I remember that name well. The broken Drake warrior, driven by bottomless hunger and fiery ambition. Precisely what the Dragon Lord envisaged for men who partake in dragon communion. The mad hunger and fierceness of spirit that only flows from those young and short of sight. He rather reminds me of Bale. In fact, such thoughts are unfathomable to ones as old as we.
So it's clear that Egon was designed as a parallel to Bale, someone who is wounded.
More parallels, more twin flames, more opposites. It's everywhere, and it's so interesting. It's so interesting. Bale has that fleshy heart that makes him angry and emotional in ways that dragons aren't, and Egon is the exact same. He's the exact same.
My arms, my legs,
Furious,
Bale! Vile Bale!
terrified, but unbowed, defined by an unrelenting will.
There is life in me yet! I will soon feast upon your heart!
That will is present in
it's
Bale's
so cool.
descendants as well. We can look to the Ghost Flame Dragon in the Realm of Shadow for proof of this. Ghost Flame Breath reads, "The land of spirit graves is home to all manner of dead, and even the corpses of fallen dragons found their way there. Several of them were endowed with such vivacity that, even in death, they could not fully die." Speaking of the Realm of Shadow, I wonder, has
so pretty.
Marika's veil over this land had any effect upon Bale? When Bale challenged the Dragon Lord, it would have been back when the Realm of Shadow was still a part of the Lands Between. And only then, long after Bale retreated to the Jagged Peak, would the Realm of Shadow have been split off from the rest of the world, becoming a land where death flows to, but not from. But perhaps this doesn't matter at all to Bale, because things between Bale and Placidusax are at a standstill. The Elder Phantom asks, "O Bale, do your wounds yet ache?" and has been waiting endlessly for Bale's fury to crest its zenith, but clearly Bale has done little in this time.
He's just been chilling.
The only evidence we
Just
have
waiting.
of Bale striking against Placidusax at all, if you can call it that, is the presence of the drakes flying all around Farum Azula.
I just want to say that I played Dark Souls 2 for the first time this year, and if you haven't watched my series, I understand. I know it's not everyone's favourite game, but when I got to the bit in Dark Souls 2 that is literally this, Farum Azula with dragons flying around, I lost my shit. Dark Souls 2, in fact, I've said this the wrong way around, Elden Ring is such a love letter to Dark Souls 2. There are so many things that Miyazaki clearly was like, I know he didn't, produce Dark Souls 2. But there's so many things he thought people slept on this game. They didn't like it as much as they should. So let's just do it again in Elden Ring, but do it better. Like, honestly, if you didn't play it, please play it, because, there's so many things. Such a good game.
Given this new context of
I love it.
a mutual hatred between the drakes and the ancient dragons, I wonder, are these drakes flying around in some sort of suppression of Farum Azula? Or is their presence this environmental set piece that we were never supposed to look too far into?
No,
I'd
never.
love to know if anyone has any good speculation on this. Perhaps there's little these drakes or Bale can do to reach the Dragon Lord. Because Placidusax, as mentioned in our last video, has long dwelled in his seat at Farum Azula, in his place beyond time, waiting for his god to return. So
Such a good
maybe
shot.
he can't even be reached there, physically at least.
My dear Lord Placidusax, tonight, like every night, My solace is yours. May it grant you sleep in your place beyond time.
Somehow, the dragon priestess devotes her sleep to Placidusax, an act that likely makes his eternity of waiting easier to bear, and yet he would abandon her in a mere instant should she drink Thiolier's concoction and falter in her duty.
I have broken my pledge. I succumbed to the deep slumber that was meant for my lord. It was a craven act of a foul and lowly beast. Forgive me, good warrior. My lord will no longer look upon me.
Feel bad for her.
I have fallen from grace. An old dragon, no longer. Go on. Leave me be.
Here, Florisax laments that she has fallen from grace, which I feel like might be wording that intentionally draws a parallel with losing the grace of the Golden Order.
Yes.
The dragons did once have the Elden Ring after all, so it makes sense that the ancient dragons could have once had grace. But now Florisax has lost Placidusax's grace, and she lost it just like that. I think this serves
that was a
to
cool
prove
idea.
just how painfully prideful the ancient dragons are.
That was a really cool edit.
I may be fallen, but I need not surrender my honor. On second thought, I believe you do owe me something for the transgression.
Okay,
On a
girl.
mere whim, you've stripped me of my one and only lord. As such, I require another. You. One day, may you become a dragon whole, a lord of your own making. Lead me, and I will follow, my good lord.
In following this questline, you'll earn Florisax's affection. The love of the ancient dragons has been documented previously with Vaik, and it's evident here too with the Dragon Bolt of Florisax you receive. It reads, "There was a time when the priestess never knew love, and thus never used this incantation herself." It's interesting to note that under Placidusax's reign, she did not experience love, but now, according to her spirit ashes, she not only has a human form, but now she has acquired a human heart as well, all thanks to her bond with you. Of course, this love is conditional on whether you can slay Bale.
We love conditional
Before we
love.
show off Egon's
That's
fight
great.
with Bale, I want to take a moment to shout out Displate, who are the sponsor of this video. If you're looking for a dragon-themed print, we actually do have one on there. It's called
Display
Guardian
on
of
paying me,
Moonlight.
so.
That the Jagged Peak was a volcano once, though it seems dormant for now. In the surrounds are countless dead drakes, many with that sharp gravel stone upon them that seems to indicate that they were victims of ancient dragons. But even though the description says that they've been supped on, a part of me also thinks they might have just been victim to each other.
Well, that would make sense, because in this bit here, or like just after, two of the dragons are fighting, right? And you can literally sit there for as long as you want and watch them kill each other. Or whichever one dies first, you kill the other one. So that checks out.
These dead drakes are
They're going stir
surrounded
crazy.
by a Jagged Peak drake here, and further up, two Jagged Peak drakes clash with each other. Such a thing reminds me of the description of the horn-strewn excrement, which reads,
Yummy.
"It is said that the deadliest of the horned predators enjoy the sport of hunting and devouring other horned creatures. Their clash, I think, is this return to the wildness often seen in the days of the Crucible. In times long past,
Before
life
Aude.
was, after all, a crucible of competition. And one revelation from the newfound Bear Communion incantation is that only through desperate battle
His
with
horns.
the feral wild can one discover a god unique to oneself." So going back to what we said at the start of this video, I feel like there is a connection being made here to the Crucible, to the wildness that is so typical of it, a wildness that persists in the drakes despite the order once granted upon their kin. At any rate, The biggest threat to Bale still isn't from his drakes, it's from you.
What a team.
Egon. Once, Egon was nothing more than a poor scavenger of battlefields, but then he found honor through dragon communion.
Curse you, Bale!
Yes. Let's fucking go.
I hereby vow you will rue this day.
Oh god, this fight was amazing. I like it when he chomped me.
Behold, a true Drake warrior, and I, Egon. Your fears made flesh.
Ah, made flesh. That's interesting when you think about his heart.
From Egon's dialogue, we can note an
very
interesting
cool.
reveal that the phantoms of others are embodiments of the soul. It's almost as if Egon's finger is furled in invitation to fight alongside him and fulfill the dream that he wasn't able to achieve in life.
Making dreams come
In
true.
Phase 2, Bale's fury finally crests its zenith and he spontaneously
Oh my
generates
God.
wings of pure flame lightning, evoking the second set of wings that ancient dragons have, the second set of wings that he was born without. Now the battle nears its end. Thank you for watching.
Solid of scale you might be.
But I basically
foul
missed his
dragon,
wings because I was stuck underneath
but I
him
will
for the whole
riddle
fight.
with holes your rotten hide.
With a hail of harpoons!
With every last drop of my being.
Yes. Theatre.
Bale the Dread. You shall haunt me no longer.
Ah, it's so good. Yes. God. Fantastic.
Before I go,
Such a
special
good fight.
thanks as always to MissPap1 for just knocking it out of the park with the cinematography
Yep.
in this video.
Thank you,
Particularly
MissPap1.
the Bale and Egon sequences, which were amazing. Also, 6 or so of those shots were also thanks to Much118x, so special thanks to them as well for letting us use some of their cinematography in this video. They've been helping with the next Prepare to Cry
Oh.
as well, so
Yay.
look forward to that. And thank you again for watching.
Oh, wow. I thought I'd do the thanks with Vaati. It seems really disrespectful to watch his whole video and then not listen to the thanks to the people in the community that helped make it happen. Because, wow, what a bunch of talented people. I can barely fight these enemies. And there's people out here, like, making full motion picture movies out of the battles. It's very impressive. I'm trying to find a cool shot to like land on while we have a little chat before I go. If you're wondering why the hell I'm being so annoying and flicking through everything, I kind of want one of Bale, but I don't know. Maybe that one? Oh yeah, that's gnarly. Happy Halloween. That was really, really cool. As ever, Vaati is just the absolute master of this community and the master of his craft, and I'm really grateful to be able to learn more about our favorite game through him and through these amazing videos. Please go watch, sub to him on Patreon, go buy the displates from his link, go do everything. I just think he's brilliant, and I love watching these videos with you guys too and finding out what you think. I feel like it kills me to say this, but I'm not totally sold on the connection between the dragons and the crucible, and I don't know that I have the mental capacity to fully explain why yet, but there are some things I want to research myself from that video, like the harpoon that appeared to kill the gargantuan dragon, that looked like it was made of verdigris that had been deep fried at the chip shop. Very interested in that, and I feel like more could have been maybe dug into there. And I just don't know. I feel like in my head there's like the Golden Order, the Crucible, and then a secret third thing, which is like the Ancient Dragons. And I don't know that I feel like super passionate about the fact that they're related. I feel like there's something else going on there. So I need to go and have a think about that. I'd be really interested to know what you guys think about that. It's fun to theorize. This is all just theories at the end of the day. There's like not that much that's been empirically clarified by From Software, but a lot of the theories are sort of indisputable to a point because it becomes quite obvious. But that one I'm not too sure about. So I'd be interested to know what you guys think. I absolutely loved that video. It feels really good to be watching VaatiVidya stuff again, and hopefully I'll knuckle down and beat Consort Radahn this week and can resume my life in the Elden Ring community, of which I have vacated for the past few months while I play the DLC on the channel. I've not been very involved, but that was amazing. Thank you guys for watching with me. Thank you, Vaati, and all of the amazing creators that contribute to these videos with theories, like Zully the Witch, came up a few times in that. Everyone's just brilliant. I'm really grateful to be part of this community, and I'm grateful to be an Elden Ring fan. So yeah, it's a good time. That was great. I will see you in the next one.